Hey everyone, CDD Music here. I'm CDD, and this is going to be another addition to the segment of the monthly album roundup, where pretty much I go through a good chunk of albums that I listened to over the past couple of months, or usually it's a month, but I'm compiling 2 months into one, and I'm going to pretty much give my brief opinions about each individual one. April and May are really good months for music this year, especially since so far my favorite album of the year dropped in April, technically, even though I heard it like a week in advance. And it's had its fair share of disappointments as well, though. So with that in mind, let's get this show on the road. This was pretty good. I wasn't that thrilled about it as soon as I finally had a concrete opinion about this album. I feel like that actress isn't so much going for something more cacophonous and what feels kind of cloudy with this album, like actress did with the previous project. But still, if you're looking for cold, calculated IDM music that definitely bumps, then definitely check this out. This is a dope album, but if you play the whole thing backwards, you will realize that the Black Israelites sold out to Mike Will Made It in order to warn that Fox News is going to read the book of Corinthians, and damn, God, this was a disappointing. I was really kind of sort of hyped for this thing, especially since Gorillaz have put albums that I've enjoyed in the past, like Demon Days, like Plastic Beach, of course. And hearing this thing, the first half had a lot of promise to it. I definitely was a fan of the first half, but it just falls apart on the second half, especially with that closing track. I love Jenny Beth. I am a big Savages fan and all, but her guest appearance is not that great. It doesn't sound all that great. And that's the thing with a good chunk of the guest appearances. They're not that implemented all that well. Not like with Vince Staples or Pusha T or Benjamin Clementine. There's some that are definitely put in there well, but for the most part they're not. And Damon Albarn has no presence on this album whatsoever, it feels like. I just don't know what this album is other than just a mixed bag. A very disappointing mixed bag. On a serious note, this is really good. I definitely enjoyed this a lot. It definitely adds to Colin Stetson's canon of being able to take the saxophone and do all kinds of weird and out there stuff with it that no one would think that you could do with a saxophone. But on a fun note, saxophone magic, woo! I thought this was really good. I just wish that there wasn't so many tracks on this thing, and I wish that some of the other tracks here were a little more, in a sense, eccentric and a little more fleshed out in a way. I wish there was a little bit more intricacy with some of the tracks here. What Feist is essentially doing with this album is what Mitski tried to do with her album last year. I just wish that it was a lot better than it ended up being. I definitely recommend this album to Feist fans and people that like lo-fi, indie rock and all that. But yeah, this just didn't end up clicking all together for me, unfortunately. This is how you make pop rap. This is how you make pop rap. This is how you make pop rap. I thought Joey was really good with this album. The production was definitely hard-hitting and definitely added a certain edge to it. And the guest appearances, even J. Cole, even though I'm not a big J. Cole fan, were definitely really good. Is this better than his previous album? I would definitely say so. He is, without a doubt, going to trailblaze in the rap game from the time to come. And he's only like 21 or 22 years old. This was boring. I did not care for this album. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was bad. If you're into that kind of hard rock, that kind of progressive rock, to a certain extent a psych rock edge, then you'll get something out of it. You'll get something out of it more than I did. I just found it pretty homogeneous, and there wasn't a whole lot in terms of intrigue within it for me. Arca is definitely exploring in some weirder territory with this album, and it was not even that complicated for him to do. All he had to do was start singing. It was kind of hinted that he was going to sing on his Entrañas mini album slash mixtape that he dropped last year, but with a whole album, well, most of an album with him singing on it, he definitely is adding a whole other layer to what it is he's doing with his music. Couldn't understand most of it since it's all in Spanish, but he is without a doubt a really eerie vocalist, especially as he is matching his vocals with instrumentals that are just as eerie, which I ended up enjoying a lot. Yeah, this was okay. I caught Cashmere Cat live a while back, and his set was just okay. I just wish that he would do something that made me interested in him when I heard his EPs, because having a standard little poppy electronic album that is not that great, you're pretty much doing what artists like Calvin Harris are doing, artists like David Guetta are doing. Another comeback album, and it's actually good, yay! Another comeback album, and it's just okay. I just didn't end up feeling thrilled hearing the album. Although, Governed by Contagions is still one of my favorite songs of this year. For reasons that include production and, in a sense, riffage, this album does remind me a lot of Nails' last album, but this is still really good. It pretty much proves my point that Full of Hell spent all those collaborations evolving and kind of experimenting with their sound, and it definitely has paid off, hands down. There's definitely a noise edge to what Full of Hell is doing, and just within 23 minutes, they have put out one of the biggest highlights of metal music this year. I'm, in a sense, a casual Pond fan. I caught their set at Shaky Knees, and they were kind of a mystical force in that regard. And with this album, they definitely are still doing that in the studio. It's just that I didn't find it as thrilling in a sense. If you're a big psychedelic rock fan, if you're a big psychedelic pop fan, you should definitely check this out. This is definitely up in your alley, and you'll probably like this a lot more than I did. Now, I dig how cohesive this album is. I dig how it feels slightly linear. I just wish that there were more tracks here that stood out from one another, because they all pretty much sound the same. In terms of instrumentation, in terms of the vocal delivery, he can definitely sing well. He's definitely capable at rapping, and the beats aren't bad at all. I just wish that there was something a bit more unique about what he was doing, and unfortunately there's not. This was a grower for me because I dig Evermore, The Art of Duality, more than this album, but that doesn't necessarily say anything about it being, this album, Renaissance, being less than quality for me, because they are pretty much going for something a little more accessible this time around, but it's still really good. It's still nice, conscious, sort of braggadocious, psychedelic rap, cloud rap, kind of a jazz rap type thing. And that's what the Underachievers do well at this point. I can definitely depend on the Underachievers to be consistent. It's a mess, and that's all I'm gonna say. It's a mess. I don't get the hate behind Wavves, because I caught them at Shaky Knees a while back, and their set was really good, and King of the Beach was a really good album. Maybe if I listened to all the albums from then to now, I would definitely understand why people hate this band so much, but as of right now, I thought this album was good. I thought this album was pretty fun, but there wasn't enough for me to say that I was in love with this album. But if you are a power pop fan, if you are a indie rock fan, then you'll definitely want to check this out. Wavves are still doing particularly okay with this project and with their music. Yeah, this was a surprise. I had no anticipations for this album, but Jlin pulled through with this project. She's pretty much taking the genre of footwork and infusing all of these other sounds to this thing, and I certainly enjoy it a lot. I'm still processing how good and how different Jlin is taking the world of IDM right now. And this is only her second album. If she can keep this up, then she is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Sounds like a Gucci Mane project. I think this mixtape slash album only existed because it was the 1-year anniversary of Gucci Mane getting out of prison at the time. And it's okay. I mean, Gucci Mane still being Gucci Mane, and there's some pretty cool features on this album. Metro Boomin has handled a lot of production, and I do like Metro Boomin as a producer. Mountain Goats, Goths. Mountain Goats have always been kind of a weird band in a sense. They have kind of a Neutral Milk Hotel vibe to them, but a little more lyrically focused, and I dig that quite a bit. They're actually more lyrically focused than a lot of indie rock and alternative rock out there, and that is pretty rare in a sense. I mean, you definitely have bands out there that make great lyrics, you know, you definitely have bands and artists that do definitely put work into the lyrics. It's just that very few of them have lyrics as the one thing that makes them stand out amongst their contemporaries or even the people that they were influenced by. And with this album, it's definitely showcasing that even more, since I'm still, like I said, processing what Mountain Goats are doing with this album in terms of lyrics. The instrumentals are still really solid. It's not too different from what Beat the Champ was, if not a little more moody and a little more ambitious in a certain degree. And it's definitely a favorite of mine for the month. And if you're into music of this nature, if anything I just said sounds appealing to you, then definitely check this out. You'll find a lot to dig with this thing, especially since I think the concept album is about the gothic culture, or maybe, I could be wrong, but there's definitely kind of a moodiness that, and kind of a darkness that suggests that it's relating to, you know, the album title that suggests, you know, Goths. This is probably the only Mac DeMarco album that I would say is my favorite, or a Mac DeMarco project that I would recommend, because he's channeling his inner Elliott Smith with this album, and it definitely works. He's not really doing anything that's like super exciting in a sense. It's just really chilled out acoustic guitar type stuff for the most part. Mac DeMarco fans will eat this up certainly, but as for me, I just don't see much point in returning to it if Mac is just doing a kind of a chilled out thing. It's good, it's just not for me, unfortunately. The last Perfume Genius album I thought was good. I thought it was really good. I just didn't really find myself like wanting to return to it all that often. But with this album, he's definitely upping the ante in terms of exciting music. And there's a lot of variety to it, and there's a lot of weirdness to it as well, so that's a good thing for me and a good thing for him in that regard. It's definitely a favorite of mine for the month, since Perfume Genius definitely caught me by surprise with what it is he did. And if you're into Baroque pop and to a certain extent experimental rock, and indie rock in a sense, and you'll definitely dig this a lot. This was good. I just wish it was a lot more exciting than it ended up being. I get that the whole dark ambient type cacophony that Four Swords was going for is kind of sort of his thing in a sense, but yeah, I just didn't feel like going back to it a lot. Not like with the Jlin album or the Arca album. Yeah, it sounds like a Death Grips demo project thing that Zach Hill and Andy Moran threw together. I listened to their debut album a while back and that was okay. Yeah, I just wasn't that thrilled about it. It just sounds like lo-fi indie rock, lo-fi punk rock in a sense, and I just wasn't that crazy about it. So those are my thoughts on the albums I dropped that I listened to in April and May. What did you guys think of any of these albums that I mentioned? Did you like any of them? Did you dislike any of them? What were some albums that I missed that I should consider checking out? And what did you think of those? This is CWD Music here, signing off.